Am I frozen anymore? Am I good?
No,
No, you are
so
liquid.
far so good.
I'm using my phone now because my computer is doing weird stuff.
Okay. So far so good.
It froze up first, but I also changed to a different internet. I don't know. Well, hopefully this works. What's the worst that can happen?
I don't know.
If I drink water while you're speaking, is everyone going to hear a giant gulp? Like, is that how
No.
this works?
I mean,
It's fine.
it's not that much of a problem if we do.
Okay.
That's true too. So it's fine. If it is like a we can edit it out.
Sometimes it's that. Okay. All right.
All right. Welcome back to Adulthood Friends. This is the discussion-based podcast where two former childhood acquaintances, now friends, discuss the things that really matter. This is episode 9, and today we have another former childhood acquaintance joining us as a special guest, Michael Lander. And so our topic of the day is bullying. So whether bullied, or both, what does bullying stem from? How do you stop it? And how might it affect a person later in life? So let's get into it. And we're back. So Michael, sorry, I won't call you Mike. I don't know why I slip into that. Okay.
It's okay.
What do you prefer? Is it Mike or Michael?
It's Michael. Yeah.
I already
Like, if you
asked him
call me
and then
Mike, it's
called
Oh,
him
you
Mike.
asked him that?
I asked him
Oh,
and then I called him Mike. Anyways.
some of my best friends call me Mike as like a joke because no one calls me Mike. Anyways, doesn't matter.
No, that's okay.
Michael. You call me Michael. You can call me Mike. It's fine. Whatever.
I guess I could ask you.
My nickname at camp was Miguel, the gay French artist.
Wow.
I feel like there's a story there.
For a long time. No. So Miguel, variations. Anyway, sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's better than, that's that's awesome. Michael Lander, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Michael.
It's my pleasure. Can I just say I like the theme of the episode, bullying, bullied. I like that. And
Yeah. Well, good, because that's what you have to talk about for the next.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, fuck.
You better.
That's also what happened. Oh, shit.
It's been, actually, I don't know how many years it's been since I've seen you.
Yeah, how long has it been since we've both seen you?
Well, you guys do the math. If it was grade 8 and
Is grade 8 the last time we really
31 or something? Probably, I'm sure, right? No?
Yeah, I don't think I've seen you since grade 8.
No.
So however long that was. Like,
have we even like
years?
bumped into each other since then? I'm trying to think, like at an event or something even.
I mean, do you remember that? I don't know. I sort of disappeared. I'm sure we saw each other. Sure.
So what happened is I think you came in grade 1, right? You weren't in preschool with us.
Yeah.
But in grade one. Okay, so grade 1 through grade 8, we were all in the same class together. But then after that, I think everybody in our class went to the same high school. It was Lucas, right? Except for you and Will. You guys went to
Central.
Yeah. So, and I guess since then we hadn't really interacted until I guess just well, maybe you can tell the story, but I guess until just recently when you reached out.
Yeah. I think and maybe I can't tell a whole big story just yet, but I think when I think like after grade 8, I sort of decided to start again at a different school and sort of like where I knew no one. And I sort of like, just like I said earlier, sort of like disappeared, I guess, a little bit. I needed to like get out of there and start again with people I didn't know. So anyways, I went to a different school. I sort of left the London Community Hebrew Day School behind me, right? But until recently, when I saw like the cover of your guys' podcast, and I was like, oh shit, I'm in there. I'm in that photo. And I was like, oh, that's sweet. Yeah, I'm there. I'm in that photo.
Well, we have a photo of our whole school, basically, which, by the way, everybody thinks it's like, oh, is that like one class? I'm like, no, that's the whole school. With a tiny little Jewish school.
Yeah, and I have like this giant shirt on that I remember, went down to my ankles. And anyways, so yeah.
So you've been listening to the podcast.
Yeah, so I've been listening to the podcast, and I guess the podcast was this really cool thing because it was like you guys were talking about this world that like I guess I was in, like some peripheral character in a world you guys were talking about, and I just thought it was really cool. And the first episode, I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. This is amazing. And I was like, I was just glued to it. And every night I was like listening to it. And so, yeah. And then, and I was obviously thinking about Josh because like, I wasn't good to Josh when we were younger. I was an asshole. Like I picked on Josh. And I remember that, I don't really remember the details of it, but I remember like being an asshole. And, that's not who I am anymore. And so when he popped up and you guys popped up as sort of talking about this stuff, I was like, fuck, I got to message Josh and apologize, because apologies are a big thing, like in my life. Like I do a lot of therapy. I do it all day from this room that I'm sitting in right now, actually on this Zoom. And I always talk about apologies. I talk about reconciliation. So anyway, so I called Josh, or I messaged Josh, and then we had a Zoom call.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to apologize. And so
that was probably one of the most impactful things that's happened to me in a very long time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, this podcast it's been interesting the way it's kind of, I know people are, especially people that we all know that have been listening. It's like, oh, everybody's a three-dimensional adult human being that we can relate to now, and it makes us reflect on the past quite a bit.
Yeah, and we are adult human beings, right? Who have feel remorse or happiness, or remember everyone's childhood like haunts them or makes them happy, a little bit of both, right? So we all remember. Anyway, yeah.
Well, it's cool because you're saying like you were a periphery character when we were describing it, right? And that's what we all are in someone else's childhood, is a periphery character. But it's like it almost makes us like, oh, but I'm not like that now. Like they don't know me now, It's so, that's why, like, I mean, it's awesome to see you, Mike, and we talked a little bit before the podcast, but it's like, I actually don't know you. I'm assuming I do because I knew you as a kid, but I don't really, I don't know you now. So,
and what is your job today? What do you do today?
Yeah.
I'm a child and family therapist. I'm a social worker. So I'm a social worker by trade, and I'm a child and family therapist.
Good for you.
At a mental health agency in Toronto. And I'm also a therapist. Like I have my own private practice.
So you help people. You better people's lives, and it's a difficult job, right?
Yeah, it's a hard job, but I love it, and
it's a noble one.
Yeah, it's not always, you're not always doing such amazing things. I mean, like, yeah. Anyways, but it's important stuff.
I mean, you are doing.
Well, yeah.
You are doing something. I think like people really appreciate their therapist most of the time. And I mean, working with families and kids to me sounds like one of the more difficult ones, right? Like, but well, you're saying that you were an asshole as a kid, but Josh told me like that you were a social worker now. And I remember thinking like, oh, that's actually perfect for him. And I only knew you as a kid. So, I mean, I think, like we think that we're like, you remember me as an asshole, but I mean, we remember the other parts too. You were still a very nice guy, like a fun guy to be around.
Yeah, we're going to get into it, but it's not black and white.
It's not
it's not like Mike was an asshole and Josh was a victim and I, it's not like that. It's not so.
Yeah, we were all
assholes
though.
Yeah, we had these roles, but I guess we'll get into that. But
yes,
I guess maybe I can ask this question.
Go for it.
I remember asking this to Pierce as well when he came on the episode.
Love Pierce. Great episode.
Yeah, Pierce is he came to talk to us.
I think that was the favorite so far. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was great. Also to see how Pierce, became a totally different person than you may have remembered, as a kid. But I guess so. What we asked Pierce, and I guess we can ask you as well, for all of us, is how do we all perceive each other as kids? And maybe we can start with you, Mike, how you perceived me and how you perceived Aya when we were growing up.
How I perceived you guys.
How did you, so he doesn't feel.
Would you like?
Yes. Yeah. Please tell me how you perceived me.
Aya, why don't we start with you?
Very vulnerable
I'm happy to start because it's hard to put that on the guest maybe. So so I mean, because I guess I already sort of touched on this, but yeah, I remember you were kind of the fun, cool guy to be around. Like you were the life of the party. You were like the chill dude, but like the face you're making is suggesting that that's not how you saw yourself. But like, yeah, I think we all kind of, like, everybody wanted to be Mike's friend, at least by like grade 8. That was sort of, it's what Josh would call the top of the food chain. And yeah, so I mean,
Yeah, that is so weird to me.
yeah, you didn't see yourself that way?
No. I remember being like so completely uncomfortable in my skin. Like I remember lighting a test on fire at recess. Like I remember weird snippets of that. I don't remember like necessarily being any cooler than anyone. I think, I remember sort of being a little bit of a troublemaker and being like angry and sometimes getting into fights and yeah.
Well, I guess I'll go next because I remember. Well, so it's complicated, right? If I look back, and again, by the way, just like you, I don't have perfect memory of my years at that school, whether it was purposefully or not. Some of that's kind of out of my head, and then this podcast, actually, as we talk about it, it kind of comes back. Like even when Pierce came on last time on the mortality episode, and he brought up that time he punched me in the stomach, I was like, I totally forgot about that.
I remember that, by the way.
Yeah.
I had when I heard that, I was like, oh, I remember exactly where I was in relation to the stomach punch.
So that came back to me when he said it. And of course, a whole bunch of it, where we were, in that park, everything. Mm-hmm. But until that point, I'm like, if someone had, it didn't even cross my mind at Pierce, then I made physical contact, let alone him punching me in the stomach, Mm-hmm. So, yeah, so stuff is already coming back as we're sitting here. But looking back, yeah, similar to Aya, and maybe even more so being, one of the guys, I thought you were like the coolest kid in the class, or one of the coolest kids. I mean, you and Daniel, you guys were all just up there, to me. And you guys were super funny. You made everybody laugh. I think you made the teachers laugh. You were a very, very funny kid. And, you made me laugh when you weren't, when the jokes weren't about me. So on the one hand, I thought, I want to be Michael's friend. I want to be kind of, like you. And on the other hand, I was often, I guess, the butt of the joke, or the one who was kind of picked on at the expense, at my own expense, right? And so I do remember, I mean, if I look back, I guess the person who had caused me the most grief in terms of being picked on, I guess, was you, up until grade 8. So it was a weird dichotomy, because on one hand, that could make my life very difficult, at least as I recall. But I also thought you were the coolest. So it was, I guess in some ways it made it kind of sad, because, the person that I wanted to be close to was, sometimes not the nicest to me. And it's very weird. I have to say, it's very weird to say that right now, because even just talking to you now, and when we just reconnected, I'm like, holy crap, this guy's the nicest dude in the world. This is the nicest guy. Like, and you're a social worker and you help people and all this stuff. And it's just, it's weird to me to be like, oh, and that's the kid that would make fun of me. And I look back, I mean, it's not so black and white. Like, as I've said on this podcast before, I was a pretty, I think, annoying kid. I think I made it easy to make fun of me. And some people say that's like victim blaming myself or whatever. I mean, I think it's just explaining it a little bit. Because there's bullies out there, let's say, we'll get into bullying, what that is, but there's bullies out there that are psychopaths, they have no sense of empathy, no sense of emotion, right? That's clearly not you, right? You're not like and I don't think you were at the time either. I think we just fell into these roles as kids, and we had reasons that we had different priorities in our minds of things that we were focusing on, and things that we easily neglected because of that. So it's seeing you now and who you are. I don't know. I just think, I don't know, what I was as a kid. I could see that I had these traits that made it easy to fall into this role that was the one to get picked on. I didn't take jokes very well. I didn't respond very well. If somebody made fun of me, I took it like really seriously. I responded really seriously, and that kind of pushed people to make fun of me more, right? I never laughed. I could never like laugh at myself when I was a kid, and I think that's a little on me, but I also didn't know any better because I was a kid.
Yeah.
So anyway, but going back, my memory of you was kind of, I had that dichotomy to it. You were the coolest kid in the class, and you were also the kid who, I guess, who bullied me the most.
Yeah, and like yeah, I mean that hurts so much, to hear that, and you were sort of softening the blow a little bit, but you don't need to. Like that's yeah, it's yeah, I mean, I feel terrible about that, right? To hear you say that, and whether or not I'm a good guy now, or whether or not you were whatever, as you call annoying, like, yeah, I don't think that's on you. I really don't. It wasn't about you, right? Like, I think, but I could see how, from your perspective, it was all about you, and probably since then there might have been also questions like, or you probably have had a lot of time to sort of analyze and like explain it and put it away, right? And I appreciate, and that makes a lot of sense. But I don't think like that doesn't it doesn't fully explain it, right? The explanation is more about what was going on for me, I think, because it wasn't really about you, and I think maybe that's important also, I guess, for bullying. Is it's really not about it's like this weird impersonal thing, right? You could sub in any kid in a classroom. It happens everywhere. It's not about that kid, really. But
What's
anyways,
strange though is that
right.
like even in high school though, I got bullied too, and so that would lead me to believe that there was also something about me that was more bullyable, right?
Okay. And you said learning to take a joke, like that was really helpful.
That was a very
one?
helpful thing.
Sure,
Yeah,
and I think that makes a lot of sense.
Mhm. No, you're right. I think it was grade 9. As soon as I got to high school, I had this kind of epiphany. I don't know if someone had said something to me or not, but if I can learn to laugh, like if somebody makes fun of me, I thought to myself, I'm just going to laugh along with them. They make a joke about whatever, and that's really funny. Cool, I'm gonna laugh it off. And that actually did help. It worked for a bit. But there's still something to be said about the fact that I kept attracting these sorts of, I don't know, it's something about my personality in that regard. So that's why I didn't want to consider it victim blaming, because there's just a reality of something about me that would attract that. Whether or not I deserved it is another story, I guess. But I also think that it just made it easier. Sometimes, and nowadays, actually, it's not bullying. It's I do this. I call it playing the fool a little bit, it's like being the clown or the jester, right? Like I self-deprecate, or I bring myself down to make other people feel a little more comfortable around me. So if I'm in a group and, there's often when everybody gets together, there's a little bit of social tension, and I recognize that. So I make everybody a little more comfortable by being the quote unquote the fool in the group, right? So everybody has somebody they can easily pinpoint, like, that guy's ridiculous. I'm fine, compared to him.
Yeah, I mean, look, I do that too, and I think like I'm very self-deprecating, and I think like it goes along a little bit with what you say about like taking a joke. Like self-deprecating is the next step, is like making that joke about yourself, right? And I think that, and yeah, there's like these weird skills of like social stuff. When you make fun of yourself, you sort of somehow protect yourself from being made fun of. It's like this weird backwards logic.
You preemptively like get on.
Yeah, and I was
it's really counterintuitive.
Yeah, and then you got to like spew it out. You got to start making fun of everything around you, and like you make fun of yourself, you make fun of everything, and then no one can really touch you, or at least that's what you sort of put out.
So you learn a lot from these kind of, I guess, from those situations. Growing up, I learned to be how I am, and I guess the same for you. Before you get into it, I was curious, like, what did you think of me and Aya?
Yeah, I wanted to answer
now
that
you've had some time.
Yeah, I wanted to answer that question. So, Josh, yeah, I mean, about you, I remember you being like a really nice kid who like had a lot of energy, but like good, happy energy, was always happy. you had that like cute little, that big yarmulke, right, on your head.
Oh, I
Did you
totally
not? I
forgot
forgot that.
about that.
The
Oh
cute,
my
like big thing that wrapped
there
around
was
your whole
always
head.
like one kid with a giant
Ah,
yarmulke.
There were
I
mirrors
did
on
briefly
it,
have
right?
that, yeah.
Reflect. Right? Yeah, I loved that. No,
And
but
I have to say, Mike, you never had a kipa or a yarmulke, whatever you want to call it.
it was always
You're the one
falling
who
off.
always lost it.
Always
Yeah.
Oh
falling
yeah,
off.
and the
Yeah.
teacher was always yelling to
Like,
like
get
"Kipa
your
la
keep
roche,"
on
to
your
say in
head.
Hebrew, like put keep on your head.
Yeah, no chance.
Sorry, that was just a recovered memory. Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
Okay, go ahead.
And yeah, I mean, I don't remember too much. I have like sort of flashes of memories, but my perception, yeah, I guess like if you guys have been talking about like this social scale or whatever, and you know, I think we were all sort of weirdos and sort of picking on each other to build ourselves up, and Josh, I think you were the butt of a lot of jokes, which obviously like I'm so sorry about, but I think that's how I remember it. And yeah, anyways. So, and then Aya, I remember you as you were a dancer, I think. And
Yeah, I did lots of dance. Yeah.
and yeah, that's really smart. You were way smarter than me. I think I
Oh
like
wow,
I
thanks.
think I tried to cheat off of your
I
tests.
I probably would
remember-
have let you. I feel like I was.
No, I think like you let me up to
No?
a certain point, and then we're like, get the fuck out of here. I think
No.
that's what it was.
That was what's
Oh.
so interesting to me. I said that Mike, you were like the coolest kid in the class to me as a guy, and Aya, you were that for the girls. To me. Like, you know, it's
That's-
again, we had a certain separation, right, guys and girls in that way.
Hmm.
At least to me, at least it seemed that way. The guys kind of stuck together, and the girls kind of stuck together for the most part. But amongst the girls, you were kind of.
I was the bully of
so-
the girls. That's right.
well, I
was.
can't say that because again, I didn't get bullied
I
by
get it.
you, right?
No,
But
Which is good.
yeah. I was thinking it's good. Yeah. You were getting enough. Yeah. I was thinking when you were saying, Mike, that you can like sort of sub in any kid. I remember when there was one girl I don't know why I picked her as our like target for whatever reason. Just it was like an outlet for all this anger and like whatever. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into that, but like I remember when she left, she changed schools, probably because she was like, I hate that girl. I found another. I was like, okay, here's another one. I remember like not deciding, but like it's a weird. It is like part of you looks for the person, which is so messed up. But yeah, it's a thing.
I say
forget what I was
you
going with
looked for
that.
somebody basically to fill that role.
Yeah, and there's always so it's like okay, that other person's gone, but there's someone else who kind of naturally fills that role next. And I mean, to be clear, and I'm sure we'll get into this too, but like Josh, you say like at school I was you know, quote unquote one of the cool or whatever you want to call it of the girls, but and Mike, you mentioned that I went to dance. At dance I was not. I was the Josh. I don't know about the Josh, like
I know what you mean.
I was the Josh Littman of the group. Yeah, no, I was definitely the what's it called? The bullied.
The bullied, the victim.
Bullied.
Sorry,
Yeah,
can I just
so-
add also, like
Please.
Josh, I remember you were also like way smarter than me. You were like really good at homework. You were like good on like, right? Yeah, you got like good marks. And then Josh also, I remember you used a lot of big words, right? So like psychopath. And you used it just now.
I haven't stopped using that one.
And defenestrate. And
Oh,
every
yeah.
time I
Favorite
hear
word.
fenestration, I think of you. And you used all these other big words. And then recently when I talked to you and you told me what your dad does for a living. Is that what I sort of put it together? Is that why you had those big words in your head when you were
yes,
young?
it's even more on the nose than that.
Okay.
So my dad had a binder of words, and he just
Wow.
liked collecting
God.
big, interesting
Really?
words. Yes, he did. He created any word that he thought was really interesting. He like put in this binder, and I just remember finding that fascinating. And I learned all these words that nobody else knew, and I thought I knew these secret words. And I would like bring these words to school, right? And I'd be like, guys, do you guys know what a bodkin is? It's a dagger / needle, you know, or do you guys know what it means to decollate someone? It means to decapitate. It's just a synonym. And then my favorite word, of course, being defenestrate,
Yeah.
which means it's still my favorite word.
Is
just
it?
to throw somebody? It's my favorite word. It means to throw somebody out a window. I literally wrote a short story. We were in that class together. You remember the short story, the creative writing class in high school?
Yeah.
I wrote a short story called The Defenestrator about a guy who works for the mob, and his job is specifically to throw the body out the window. And that was so, yeah, but that actually was to be honest, and I don't mean to, like, again, this is not like a blame game going around or anything, but the things my dad said were like often the direct result of like my woes at school, because my dad would say things to me not realizing how I would like take it to school. The word stuff was less serious, but like, you remember when he told me that Canada was a rotating dictatorship.
I do.
And yeah, so this was like we mentioned this in the other episode, but my dad, you know, one of his like political beliefs, like his appraisals of our government, whatever it was, is that Canada is like a rotating dictatorship. It's not its actual, that's not what it really is, like in the textbook, but that's how he saw it, right? But I was like, oh, this is what it is. And I came to the school and I was like, hey guys, Canada's a rotating dictatorship. And the teacher's like, no, Josh. That's not what it is. I'm like,
no, it's not, Josh.
It's not, because my dad said so. My dad's always right. And I do love my dad, but I can tell you for certain today that he is not always right. But at the time I would bring these things and I don't know, it made it very easy to make fun of me about that stuff. Remember how everybody would, anytime someone used the word rotate, everyone would be like, oh, rotate, like a rotating dictatorship. Or even a word that wasn't rotate. Like, you know, someone would say the word circle. Oh, circle, like rotate, like rotating dictatorship, and it would always come back. And then it was like in the yearbook even became a thing. It's so ridiculous, but these are the things that would like take up time. I don't know. And
it was such a small class that like we all knew so much about each one. Like, I doubt that, I don't know if in normal classes people get that much attention like from each other as well, right? Like, we kind of went through a very specific sort of
we had 11, 12 people in the class for the most part.
Yeah. Also, all you were guilty of in that story is like loving your dad and like believing he was right about like the government because he was smart. You were a little kid. Like, what do you know?
It was like, to me, there was an answer. It's either a democracy, a dictatorship, or a rotating dictatorship.
You like believe your dad.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Nice.
But that was also like a thing. Like, why couldn't I just, I don't know, like I let that kind of thing go? I probably pushed and pushed it, which made it easier and easier to make fun of me.
What kid,
you know,
what kid has that kind of like self-awareness that they're able to realize that their parent isn't correct? Like that takes a whole other, I didn't have that either. I brought my parents like political beliefs and I said them like they were my own, and I was very aggressive about them. That's a normal thing to do, right? Yeah.
Well, how much of our parents did we bring in? That's a good question. Like, how much of what we said and did was our parents? I realized looking back, that was a lot of like what I said was probably just repeating what my parents said, right? And whether it made sense, because you don't, when you're young, adults are perfect, right? They're all knowing and all powerful. So at least to me, like the idea, I remember it took a long time before I even realized I could rebel. And some people learn this earlier, but to me, it didn't hit me that like you can't, it didn't make sense to rebel against your parents because they're all knowing and all powerful. Maybe not everybody saw things that way, but that's how I did. So I think when they told me things, that was like the word of God. And, you know, I was this messenger sometimes, and I would come and want to share that. I don't know, maybe not everybody saw it like that. It all depends what your parents were like, but
no, yeah.
My dad, to be fair though, wasn't that to me was a lot less harmless than, if I'm honest, you know, my dad said things like that. My mother, on the other hand, was very punitive when I was at home. And it's something I can probably get into with you in another episode, but
what kind of no, it's okay.
What?
You can just
no, it's a whole, what I mean by that is that what I mean by that is the whole thing.
Can I
okay. Gotcha.
Am I allowed to ask you like a question about it?
Sure.
Yeah.
I just like, I guess I'm wondering, like, how did that affect you sort of like growing up? Like, I know your dad is like a super sweet man. That's what I know about him.
Yeah,
right.
very sweet.
Like and I don't remember your mom really.
Yes. So my mother, she passed when I was 16, and that creates a lot of. Thank you. No, that creates a lot of conflicting and weird feelings and responses in people, because our idea is if somebody's mother passes, our parent passes, that's the worst thing in the world, and in many ways it is, right? It's horrible, but there's nuance also to the fact that my mother, for example, was also in some ways, she was kind of a bully. She was kind of abusive. But I say that word, I don't say it lightly. And I also don't say that to be all encompassing, because that didn't totally define her. My brothers and my dad might actually disagree. I think they're actually I'm a little kinder on her than they are. But she, when she was good, she was good. But when she was bad, she could be pretty abusive. And oftentimes that's what I came home to. So when I went home from school, I had, it was kind of a very volatile environment there. And again, it's weird because I was like the happiest kid. I had this like, as you said, like energy, like, so I was like, for some reason, this very like generally happy kid, but like in these environments where I was getting like kind of shut down a lot. So I go home, it was kind of like an environment where I got bullied at home, and then I would come to school and I feel like, we get bullied at school. And it wasn't even just the students and my mom, it was even the teachers sometimes, right? Remember Mrs. Delaney we talked about?
Yeah, and you guys mentioned one of the teachers calling you motor mouth. Was that?
Oh yeah, that was grade 2. That was a different one. That was Miss Kinahan in grade 2.
What an awful person.
So here's the thing. I don't know enough to like.
Sorry. I'm interrupting.
No,
it's the truth is I don't know enough to like appraise her as an entire person now, but at the time that was very hurtful when she did that. But I specifically also remember Mrs. Delaney, right? Who we talked about her before, and Aya has bad memories of her too, and how she could be kind of a terror. But we had this teacher. I think the harder part is we had this teacher not just in one grade. We had her in grades 1, 3, and 5. So that was a good chunk of our elementary school years that we had this teacher. I mean, every other year we'd have this teacher who would kind of terrorize us. She was also, and she was in some ways was similar to my mother. In fact, she used to tell me how much she loved my mother. And this was like a teacher that would like tell us like if she wishes she could go back to the good old days where they were allowed to beat you. But she couldn't do that, so she had to settle for yelling at us.
And even if she was joking, like that's a messed up joke.
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, she definitely. And again, not so black and white. We had some great experiences with her too. I remember her reading us Harry Potter and whatever. But she could be very punitive and very. Yeah, it's. I don't know whether you should use the word abusive or not with that teacher, but I think she could be. I know other people who felt that way. And then, so between teachers like that, I guess my peers at school and my mother at home, I often felt like no matter where I went, I was getting bullied. And that that was kind of the life that I knew. But I also didn't know any better. I didn't think like, oh, there's like a way out of this. That was just what I had to navigate. And I always tried to see. So on one hand, that sucks. But on the other hand, I always tried to see, because of my personality, I always tried to see the positive. So I always, when the way my mother was at home, she would easily punish me if I said something in a way she'd like, if I just used, that caused me always to try to find the exact right way of saying something in hopes that I'd get out of that situation, But in general, because I talked so much, I just naturally got punished the most of my brothers.
I remember you were grounded a lot.
Yes, and that was like a joke at school. Remember, I had a shirt.
Remember
when we all went? Yeah, remember I went to Washington with you guys, and we all made these shirts.
Yours said that you were grounded, or
mine said "Can't, I'm grounded." And actually, a lot of people laughed, and that was like, at the time, I remember, I don't know if I've ever just said this out loud before, but at the time, like, that shirt, even though it was very real, like it reflected something that was going on at home for me, everybody thought it was funny. And they laughed, and that made me feel really good. Like I had like made you guys laugh. Yeah, with that shirt. And I remember like really valuing that shirt because of that. But yeah, that's true. So you guys knew that in a sense, like I was grounded all the time was like a thing. My mother would often introduce things, like give me things, I felt, just so she could take them away as a punishment. Again, the reason I didn't want to go too much of this is that's like, I feel like that's like a whole topic unto itself. But just to touch on that, I do feel, yeah, so for me, at least my experience with bullying in that sense extended out of school and into my home life as well. But I don't know, I think that goes to show that we often don't know what's going on. We don't know what's going on with kids. Like you guys probably didn't know at home.
Not at all.
That I was dealing with this stuff.
No.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure, you know, I don't know.
It like hurts to know that and remember what, like, because you know how being a kid is so scary already. It's not scary, but it's like, I know a lot of people are like, oh, I wish I could go back to being a kid. I hated it. I would never go back. It was the worst. Like, you don't know what's going on. You don't have any, like, you have no agency and you're just like at the mercy of all these people. So I'm sorry to hear that in addition to that, you were at the mercy of like, just, it seems like everyone was not an enemy exactly, but everyone was hostile in a way.
Well, the worst thing to me was I was at the mercy of my own undeveloped personality, like unformed. Because at the time, because you don't blame adults around you and you don't blame your peers as much, you blame yourself. So I felt that I kept bringing this upon myself. I caused my mother to do this to me, and I caused my peers to do this. I caused Mrs. Delaney to yell at me. You know, so you tend to do that as a kid. And it's not like nowadays. To be fair, I think sometimes you go through a rebellious phase and it goes the other way. Then you blame the world. Some people do that. They go the other direction and they start blaming everybody else. You know, to me now, I see the nuance a lot more of just the factors and everybody else being in their own little world and dealing with their own problems, and kind of neglecting to empathize with those around them sometimes leads to these scenarios.
First, can I just like say, I think, you know, I had no idea that was going on for you at home. And I'm so, you know, first of all, I'm sorry that that's what was happening. And I know that there's, you know, conflicting feelings looking back. Like I can imagine looking back on, you know, your mother and having there's anyways, conflicting feelings, and that must be difficult. Right. And you can hold both. Like, yes, there could be reasons why maybe people picked on you. And at the same time, it'd be totally fucked up that people do that, and that the world is like a terrible place to people. And then also like that you have like a seriously like an unbreakable spirit, I think. Like, and I just want to say one thing is like, maybe your sort of like hyper happiness was a protective factor against like a kind of a brutal world, and you know, I don't know, you know, like anyway, so that's
Well, I want to say something else. Despite where we're talking about bullying in this sense, there's so many different forms of bullying, right? And to be clear, I didn't come to school and it's not like you showed up and beat me. This is not the kind of bullying that I endured. In general, very, very, very rarely did I endure a physical form of bullying. You know, sometimes I think people make this kind of distinction, which I think is not necessarily true, but just a kind of generalization that girls bully in a certain way and guys bully a different way. The idea that guys like beat on each other and girls are like insidious and mess with you mentally. I think that can happen both ways. I guess it is rarer that girls like beat on each other physically, but I felt like I got more of the mental stuff, more of the verbal stuff, right? I didn't get, you know, same also at home. I think when I was very young, my mother hit me too, but I remember thinking, oh, I'd rather take that than this other stuff. The point of saying that too is that it was, I don't know, it was a different sort of environment to have to navigate, but also that it wasn't, again, so black and white that I felt like I was going to be in like physical danger, like when I came to school. So I also felt like I wanted to hang out with you guys. And oftentimes, I mean, We did. We hung out, and we
Totally.
were friends as kids in a sense,
All the
right?
time.
We did things together because this was our friend group.
Yeah,
My
you
friend
were my
group was
friend.
also you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, totally, absolutely. We were friends. We hung out at all the same birthday parties, all the same.
I went to your house for
of course,
sleepovers.
Yeah, of course. We slept over at Pierce's house. We slept over at that. Like, yeah, I remember that stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Pierce's house. Yeah, we talked about how much I loved Pierce. Pierce had the biggest house like ever.
Yeah, I also just like love Pierce. Great guy, and
Yeah.
it was always really like, I guess, fun to go and hang out with, like, and we would hang out as a group. I have clear memories of that. And guys, yeah, do a lot of banter and a lot of like making fun of each other, and and even like now surviving in the world, you sort of like need that a little bit to be able to take it as a guy, whatever. So anyways,
I was wondering, was there anything in your home lives that kind of impacted you while you were at school similarly?
for me, absolutely, yeah. And as a kid growing up, like my dad was the rabbi.
Right. Yes, that's important. That's an important point. Your dad was the rabbi.
My dad was the rabbi, and
Also, by the way, in a Jewish school,
Mhm.
I'm cutting you off. I'm sorry, but in a Jewish school, that's what made, like, again, you were so much cooler because of that.
yeah, that there and the shtetl, right? If in the shtetl, I would say I would have been so popular.
And Aya's mom was our teacher. So again, you guys were, these were things that made you guys really cool.
I don't know that helped me, but
I
sure,
feel
yeah.
that like that maybe didn't. I don't know, because you're at school with your mom. I'd imagine that would
It maybe didn't make you feel that way.
I would have
no,
run
it
away
wasn't.
from that situation.
I was relieved to get she listens, so
Of course she does.
Well, I could see it being difficult.
like a good
to
Jewish
be
mother.
there.
Yeah, come on.
She wants to listen. She wants to know. So I loved having her around.
But I having your mother as a teacher at your school, it's probably not an easy thing growing up. I don't know.
It's I mean, it has its pros and its cons. I mean, it was nice that I could have that kind of attention if I wanted it. Like if I needed my mom, she was there. But it's also like a really weird way to grow up, to have your mom around all the time. So yeah. So
you didn't have that sort of space that some other people did.
Yeah, like I remember feeling very free when I was, and I love my mom to bits, and I'm so sorry.
No, we need that's what school is. It's a space for most people. It's a space away from kind of home environment.
And my mom is she doesn't hold back her opinions of how we should live and what we should do. So she's very understanding on the one hand, especially now, but it's not like she was like, yeah, you do what you want. She was not that kind of mother. She was like I don't know if you guys remember, but I remember her telling everyone in the class that they have to date Jewish and all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, just so it's weird to have that like everywhere, to have that kind of authority everywhere. But I don't know. I love you. I love you, Mom. You were talking.
What about you, Mike?
Oh yeah. So I was saying. Oh, so yeah. So my dad was a rabbi. So then there was this sort of built-in pressure, right? Because the rabbi is often this like moral character in the community, and his family is a reflection of him, and sort of a pressure. And I rebelled against any of that, and I thought organized religion was stupid. And I was like, I remember I read Malcolm X's autobiography when I was like in grade 6 or something. And
wow.
I was like, I am going to become a member of the Nation of Islam. And I was like, I'm converting, and so I was like, I guess one of those kids. So, and yeah, so that was like sort of combined with this like pretty hard home life of, my parents eventually got divorced, but took many years of sort of like working through it / arguing. And like fighting at home, and I was a sensitive kid, and so I would like stay up and listen to them fight, and it affected me.
That stuff is terrible. Like I think it's often understated when parents are fighting, the kind of fighting that would lead to divorce. Mm-hmm. That is devastating to kids. That messes you up. I remember my parents did that too. Like they totally should have gotten divorced. That's horrible. That messes with you.
Yeah, it messed with me. It's not the worst, it's not even close to the worst. And a lot of the kids that I meet with these days are much stronger than me, dealing with much worse things, right? But it still affected me, and it was still hard. And I think I had a lot of anger, and I didn't feel comfortable in my own skin too. Like, I think like body issues and feeling whatever, and becoming a human who has like sexuality, and it just like, so I think like a lot of things were going on for me, remembering that time period in my life. But I think it was hard for me, sort of. Yeah, I think I had a tendency to sort of like disassociate or whatever, and so I think like anger or fighting is sort of a.
Were you very angry as a kid?
Yeah, I think I was pretty angry. I think I had like a lot, I got into a fair amount of fights, and I think I had a lot of sort of I still do. Like, I think part of my life was figuring out how to get all that out in healthier ways, right? Which is why I run for like 3 hours all the time. And
Wow.
I hear you're a runner, so we can talk. We can talk about that later.
I hate it every time. But yes.
So do I. It's the worst thing in the entire world. The other night I like threw up. It's terrible.
Okay. Oh wow.
Anyways, but I forget what I was saying.
I was asking if you said you
had
were
a lot of like
angry.
anger.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying is how it relates to the bullying. Is I think I brought a lot of that with me. I brought a lot of that with me. I brought a lot of that like anger and mistrust, and sort of like needing to separate from the things that might keep you up at night, right? So needing to like that deep of a feeling, if you want to cover it up, you need to go for something pretty intense, right? So that could be, and so that would be fighting, or that would be picking on someone or whatever, I think. Anyways, yeah.
So at the start of the episode, Aya, you mentioned we talk about bullies, the bullied, and then also being both in a sense, because oftentimes it's not that simple, right? That somebody falls into the role of being a bully or being bullied, right? And you and I, when we had recently reconnected, Michael, sorry, you had mentioned that it wasn't that simple for you either, right? That like oftentimes you found yourself, and I think Aya, you said the same thing, that you guys have found yourselves the victims of bullying in other circumstances. I was wondering if you guys wanted to touch on that at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, I also, so talking, because when I heard Michael explain it, it kind of makes sense too. Like, I feel like sometimes when home life doesn't feel, it's so out of your control that you kind of look for a way to control things when you can. And in school, it was easier because, I mean, it's almost like you could, I don't know, if you had the right insult or the right, I know that's like, but even just the right way of putting something, it feels like you're the one in control. And yeah, in a way it's an outlet, in a way it's you get to exert something where you feel powerless at home, but at least you have some power somewhere. I don't know if that resonates.
Oh, so it gives you the feeling of power.
Some power, some control, because like you're just at the mercy of everyone else's, whatever's happening to everyone else, or things are just happening to you when you're a kid and you don't really get to choose. So just to kind of piggyback on the whole like anger stuff, I mean, I was angry as well, and I still have some anger stuff I've been told sometimes. So I mean, I definitely I can understand that. And I think so. And sorry, I didn't mean to go backwards, Josh, but
no, actually, I feel like I got ahead with my question,
no, it's okay.
And I realized you didn't get a chance to really touch on that topic. Okay. So I'm glad that you are.
It's okay, because it also goes into the next. So like, I mean, I've mentioned already a few times, but like at dance school, I was definitely not popular, and if anything, like anything I said was like a reason to make fun or whatever. And I remember the first time there was this one girl, for some reason, decided that I would be her victim, if you want to call it that. And one of the first times she was doing this, I don't know why I got pissed off. I was a scrawny little kid. I don't know if you guys remember that, but I was very small. But for some reason, my response to her when she was like really, she just wouldn't stop, and I punched her in the stomach. And
I shouldn't laugh.
as you do.
I just didn't expect
That's the
that.
theme of this
deserve it.
podcast, apparently. Stomach punches. Sorry.
Stomach
Stomach
punches,
punching,
yeah.
Continue.
Well, I was like, isn't this how you stand up for yourself? And sometimes that helps you, but sometimes it really doesn't. I remember, so then her little sister was I talked to her in a dance class. She goes, "Do you like my sister?" And I was like, "I don't know. I mean, she's kind of mean to me." And she's like, "Because you punched her in the stomach and then she threw up at home." And I was like, "I don't think you throw up like 3 hours." Now I'm like, I don't think you throw up like 3 hours after, but okay. At the time I was like, oh shit. And I remember that was kind of, because it was early on that it was like the stomach punch, but I mean, it kind of went on for a while. And I just, I never really I wanted to be their friend, but I also had my response was always angry. So like, Josh, I marvel at your resilience in some ways, because I responded with insults back at that. Like, that doesn't help. Like, I would try for kind of the low road, whereas you're just kind of like, you were kind of,
I don't know, was my road the high road? I don't know. It was just,
I mean, you
sometimes
maintained some sort of you were just like a happy go lucky dude that you were, you could say that you were bullyable.
Oblivious? No.
Poor choice of words on my part.
Well, wait, sorry. If I can just say, it didn't break you, and it didn't like people weren't treating you right. And for a lot of kids, that can make things really, really bad for them, or they start doing drugs, or they start getting into serious trouble, or they fight back against people who are stronger than that, and kids get into bad situations because of that. But you didn't. So you did take some sort of higher road to get to where you are, who you are now. That's apparent to me. But
Josh.
I think he's talking to me.
I'm talking to Josh. Sorry.
I will say
no, I'm just making
I
sure. I was like,
you're great too, Aya.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
No, Michael, I appreciate that for sure. But I will say that growing up, the way you guys handled things, to me, I wished I could be that way sometimes, right? I wished I could. To me, that was courageous sometimes, the way you could stand up to things like that, right? If the idea to me, even just hearing that right now, some girl is bullying you and you punched her in the stomach, I'm thinking well, sure, maybe it doesn't help, and violence is never the answer, right? But yada yada. But you stood up for yourself right there, right?
Sure, I cried soon afterwards, if that makes you feel better.
I'm not saying you should have necessarily punched anybody. Although it's funny, we were just saying what, guys are the ones who are physical and girls aren't. In our story here,
I had 2 older brothers,
it's only the. But to me, I mean, look, the way things are handled when we're kids is so we don't know anything, right? We're guessing at our responses, right? But you at least had the wherewithal to realize, I'm not being treated well, and I need to do something about this.
Josh,
right?
Can I ask you a question, Josh? I guess when later in your life, when your mom passed, was there any sense of freedom, or something changed that, because you said you were punished a lot, sometimes for no reason, and was there some sense of I'm not going to be you could do more things? Did you feel that at all in your life, or not really?
Yes. And that's where it's weird to tell people that sometimes, because to hear that doesn't mean that the opposite isn't also true. I gained some things and I lost things all at once.
Absolutely.
Right. Then I felt guilty about feeling good about the things that I gained. Right.
Yeah.
So, for example, my mother, as she was as punitive as she was, a lot of people have rules as kids, your parents tell you have to do this, do that, right? But I got punished every time I didn't stick to some rule that was made probably a lot more than others. Suddenly all those rules were gone. And my dad wasn't the type of person to enforce rules. So we went from one extreme to another extreme. In high school, I went from like, I don't know, like you have to be in bed by this specific time, no TV, no this, no that. You can only eat this, only eat that. I don't know. These are very vague rules, but I can remember. But basically, I went from that to you can do anything you want. You can stay up as late as you want. You can talk to whoever you want. You can go out and come back whenever you want. There was literally no more enforcement of rules, or even my dad didn't. I don't even remember him having any. Probably don't waste money or something is probably the only rule that I can recall. that one's stuff. But and that led to freedom and also me having a terrible sleep cycle, which has lasted to this day. But that also meant, yes, I suddenly had this freedom from that sort of bullying at home. And honestly, it also affected me at school. I think a lot of people had heard Josh's mom died, even the people who made fun of me and didn't treat me well. And I think that elicited some empathy and maybe even triggered some empathy in some people who weren't feeling it before. And I did get treated better after that happened in general, And then I even remember there was like a kid once who made fun of, I think right after my mom died, like a kid tried to use that against me. He had to be like, well, your mom's dead, so
You're like, what the fuck?
What?
And then
That's
at first of all, it was so ridiculous to me
Yeah.
at the time that I didn't even bother me. I was like, okay, buddy.
Okay, yeah.
But I remember other kids heard that,
All right.
and they came up to me and they were like, hey Josh, you want us to like beat his ass for
Oh,
you?
nice.
And I was
You were like,
and I remember sitting
yes.
there and no, I was like, no.
Oh,
I was like,
smooth. That's a
please
power
be.
move.
Yeah, right there. That was the first time I felt that sort of power. But then I'm like, wait, I feel this because my mom died. It was just like a weird. It was weird. That's all I can say. But to answer your question, yes, things changed. Some things for the better. And then, yeah, also I didn't have a mom anymore, which had a lot of negative sides to it as well. To this day, I think because I didn't have a mother through some important years, I seem to be missing certain skills, like life skills and certain ways of interacting with the world that you learned from your mother that I didn't have. Yeah, I don't know if you've noticed some of my quirks. Sometimes I feel like some of those. I don't know. You know who notices these things? I think like my girlfriend. Like she'll notice things. I'll be like
what quirks?
Yeah.
Give us an example.
What's something?
Don't have to. Yeah, do you have...
What are things that like you think like a mother would teach you?
Like, are these like
as you're
laundry
like
related or cooking?
Are they what?
I'm thinking matzo ball soup. I'm thinking
that's you know what though? I only did just start cooking. I don't. It depends if it's your mother or your father, but I never learned like even to this day. Like I don't know how to do certain life. Like, I don't know, taxes is maybe a poor example, but like just things that I really organizational skills that your mother teaches you. I think. I don't know. This maybe it's just what I think I would have learned from my mother, because those were things she was really good at. Also, I really wish she was around today so that I could confront her about all these things as an adult and have a conversation and try to learn more about her as not this person who had all this power over me, but someone I could talk to as an adult, as two separate adults, and try to understand her better and see how she would respond to the me of today. But also, I might not be the me of today if what happened didn't happen. So it's really hard to, But again, yeah, that's. Sorry, sometimes when I start talking about this stuff, I start thinking this is like a whole topic. But yeah, what were we talking about before?
I think we were talking about being bullied ourselves.
Yes.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yes.
And I would say for me, like I was bullied a lot as a kid. I was fat. So I don't know if you guys remember that, but I was like very fat.
I never saw you as fat.
I don't remember very fat. I remember
you don't remember me fat? Oh, I was fat.
I remember. I mean, you were a bigger guy, like in a sense, but to me, that was just more powerful as a kid. As a kid, you look at.
I was pudge ball. I was fat. I've gone through different periods of like being fat in my life, but I was fat growing up, and I was made fun. That was like what I was primarily made fun of for at different places, like early on at camp, but at school and in that like sort of like Jewish community, I guess. And I had some people who bullied me. And
May I ask, what was your response when that would happen? If someone made fun of, like, made a joke, would you laugh with that, or would you?
Yeah,
I'm
I
just
had
curious.
no, I mean, I became self-deprecating early on. Humor was my deflection. And I think,
Okay.
like, I think early on, actually, as we were talking earlier, I got a flash of something and I wrote it down because, I think, like, my brother is like this amazing guy. He's a Hasidic rabbi now. And my brother has always
Eric,
done
right?
Eric, Yisrael Lander, as he goes by. And he's a great guy, but he's always been very much himself, no matter what. And so when you're young and you are like that, sometimes you can get picked on if you are like, no, I'm wearing this shirt. This is the shirt I love. Doesn't matter if no one thinks it's cool. Okay, so sometimes people will pick on you. And I think I would overhear the older kids sometimes pick on my brother, make fun of him behind his back. And I think that affected me as like a little kid. I got a flash of that. And I sort of was like, oh, you got to be cutthroat in this world or you're just going to get destroyed. And I remember the social world being a really scary place, really scary. And still is, but used to be way more scary. And I felt like I really had to like move my way strategically through it. And sometimes that was like stepping on other people to get to be more popular, right? Like, I don't know, is that called a social climber? Or no, that's not even. It's just this image of a climber, that whatever.
Sounds like you
So
were trying to
It's a
survive. Yeah.
yeah, I
yeah,
was
it's a
trying to
defense.
survive.
You develop these defense mechanisms, and sometimes they were like preemptive attacks.
Yeah, exactly.
Preemptive strikes.
Yeah, like I remember, I was saying this, yeah, like I remember when I first got to high school, I went to this new school where I knew no one. And I was like, where am I going to eat the first day? I just need to find someone to eat lunch with on the first day. The rest I'll figure out. Or else I'm going to be labeled a loser and everything. And then the rest of my life's going to be over. So I was like, my plan was like, I'm going to make fun of every single teacher. In every single period leading up to lunch. I'm going to lean over to the person beside me, make fun of the teacher, and that's how I'm going to meet someone. And I did. Like that first person I leaned over, I made fun of the teacher. He made fun of the teacher back. We started talking, and that's who I ate lunch with for the first like month of high school until I met other people and sort of moved on. But this idea of like attacking others or making fun of people is sort of this weird social thing. So I remember being very like strategic about it.
I don't know I feel like I was talking to someone who went to Central, the high school you went to, recently. I can't remember who it was.
Are you telling I told you
Is this you?
Okay, you were talking to Aya, and Aya, this is her story.
Wait, what? Is it?
Yeah, I know someone.
Okay, tell me the story.
Well, yeah. So first, I have to say it's really interesting that it was so intentional because it never seemed that way. Like I always looked at it as like some people go through this so effortlessly, and it seemed like it was effortless. And then to the story that Josh is still wondering if so Josh, I told you. Yeah, okay. So okay. I know someone. So I was talking about the podcast. Someone listened to it who I know in London who went to Central. Yeah.
Okay, maybe this is maybe.
And he said,
I have talked to other people who went to Central. I want to point this out. But you might be right.
I think I told you this, Josh. So
okay.
So I said so he said, oh, I know Michael. I knew Michael Lander, and I said, oh yeah, like I went to school with him. And he said his memory of you was in the cafeteria, like as the cool guy, and that like people were just coming to you and like coming and sitting with you, and you were just like the chill. He described you as the cool Jewish guy. I was like, I know that was like, I guess like there weren't that many Jews at Central. I don't know. So that was a pre like I hadn't said anything about what our impression of you or that you were the cool dude in like that was so that was the grade.
This must have been
first day of grade 9 at Central. Yeah.
Eventually I made friends. I eventually hung out with whoever. I probably figured out who was the coolest and tried to become friends with them, or who was the hottest, I guess, girl. But yeah, so I was really fat and right, and I was, and I've dealt with that my whole life. Like and eventually, at some point, I stopped eating, right, and stopping eating is an eating disorder. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
But as a kid, you're just like, okay, I just won't eat. I just won't eat until I lose all this weight because everyone's making fun of me and no girls are talking to me and whatever. In fact, I met a girl recently, someone recognized me from a bat mitzvah, and my nickname was Squish, right? So I was fat. My nickname was Squish. It's kind of cute, but anyways.
Yeah.
So
Well,
but people, like, there were these older guys who bullied me a lot, and I think that in many ways like led to me sort of like hating my body, like not liking myself. And I think a lot of people go through that, right? And I think a lot of, mostly women, but a lot of guys too, right? And I think I was one that did go through that a lot, and it's sort of like socially rewarded to lose a lot of weight, and no one's wondering how if you sort of starved yourself to it. But I think like that was also that's in the theme of sort of like strategic social stuff that you do, because we live in a world that is not nice and rewards people who are better looking. And when you're young, that's how you understand it. And unfortunately, it's not so far from like the truth of this world. And so I was susceptible to that. And yeah.
It's so interesting that you like I'm sorry that you were like going through that. And it's interesting because I never, like, when I look back at you, I just saw Michael's so cool. He's like this guy at the top, I never thought he's going through anything of his own. Like, that didn't hit me in any way. I just thought if I could have been you in many ways, I probably would have, and that's just so interesting to, I guess it's just very impactful to hear that, everyone's kind of fighting their own little battles, right? And that's, I think I said this before on this podcast, but it's really hard to empathize with others when we're fighting like battles of our own. Like you're not putting yourself in somebody else's shoes when you're struggling to walk in yours.
Wow, that's a good line, Josh.
Yeah, seriously. Did you come up with that, or is that?
Actually just came up with that, so there you go. I get
Really?
there's something I didn't.
It's true.
Quite impressive. Yeah, that's a quotable quote.
It feels like a mishmash of some other quotes, but
Oh, that's pretty.
No, but you're right. Like you're so right. That we were all sort of like figuring out how to live in our own shoes and struggling to do it. We couldn't even really understand the people around us, or that's really interesting, Josh.
Yeah.
There was this one guy who bullied me a lot, and for being fat, and I held on a lot of like resentment. But it relates to what Josh was saying, in that like he was sort of like this guy I wanted to be friends with, and that's sort of like the twisted part of it, I guess. Like he was sort of a friend, but no, I thought he was cool, and I would be hanging out with him, but he'd be making fun of me, whatever. So it affected me a lot. And I when I left, when everyone went to this one high school and I went to the other one, it was largely because like that kid and his group of friends were at that other high school, and I was
really?
like, I was like, fuck that.
I didn't know that.
There.
Oh, smart.
Yeah. I was like,
so you chose, you
way.
purposefully, you told your family, I want to go to this other high school because basically it was because of that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't tell anyone that, but I was like, yeah, I want to start fresh, and I don't want to be around these people. Anyway, so years go by. I joined the football team. I'm getting ripped. Whatever. No, I'm just joking. But I'm in high school and whatever. And fighting is like a thing in high school. And so I decide I'm gonna go and I'm gonna fight this guy who bullied me. I'm gonna find out where he is. And I'm gonna go fight him. So I go. I find out there's a school dance, like the school you guys went to, there was a school dance. So I'm like, I'm going to go to that school dance and I'm going to fight him there. So I show up at the school dance and I go inside and I approach him and I get in his face and I'm like, hey, like whatever. I'm like, you fucker, you picked on me. Do you remember that? And I was like, let's go outside. And he looks at me and he goes like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like I was such a terrible person back then. And I was dealing with like, my mom had died and I was like so hurt then. And I am like, and I'm so sorry. And I was such an asshole and I never meant anything. And And I like looked at him. I remember I looked at him and I like thought for a second, and then I just like I hugged him, and then I turned around and I walked out. And that was it. And that was sort of like a little bit of me, like, yeah, sort of like, uh, I don't know, it was a little bit transformational, and I guess a little bit of like letting go of that. And like sometimes, sometimes I talk about with people like the things that chase us, like we're running away from, what difference it would make to sort of like turn around. And sometimes it's that idea of like turning around and hugging something that has hurt you so much, can be pretty powerful. And so that was like a thing that happened. Yeah.
Wow. No, that's like
That's beautiful.
that's
Like, that's
that's
quite something. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because like in talking to you, I have a similar sort of, not similar because it's not like I want to find Michael Lander and fight him. Because I honestly, I mean, we hadn't talked in years, but over time, I'd seen glimpses of you on social media and things going on. And I was aware that you were like a good guy. You're like a really good guy. And I never brought a specific, I don't know if it's the same for you guys. I never brought a specific kind of animosity towards an individual like you. I never thought like, oh, Michael Lander, like if I could just see, I'm gonna find him. Like I kind of, because I was able to see like, oh, that was you as a kid was not, we grew up, There was another kid in our class actually who I had a lot of issues with. I won't point out names right now, but we met up years later too. And I was actually a little worried about this. We hadn't had like a good interaction until this. I don't know. We met up for frozen yogurt. This is like me coming back from, again, I'm in LA now. I live in Los Angeles. I came back home and he happened to be there at that time as well. And we got frozen yogurt together. And again, he was the nicest guy in the world. Like he was super sweet. And I could see while I was sitting there that he had there was this anxiety that he was like sitting with, like that he could say the wrong thing. And he was just everything he wanted to say. He was very careful to be kind and sweet. And we immediately, like, I think took that rug of anxiety, pulled it away, and realized, like, dude, you're awesome. Like, clearly, we're adults now. Hopefully we're good people. We could be friends. We don't have to be living in that kind of the pain of the past of whatever we went through. And so I remember thinking, for me, that was one of the earlier points where I realized, it's not, I couldn't hold the animosity against the person because people grow up and they change. Again, unless there's some sort of psychopath that isn't capable of empathy, as soon as people gain a sense of empathy, that's often when they really, fully form and become good, compassionate adults. So even though I hadn't talked to you, Michael, I had seen enough to know, like, oh, he's clearly a good guy. And for the longest time, I guess we never had done it, but I wanted to like reach out and just get together for a meal or something at some point. Now it's harder during the pandemic, but I hope we still can do that. Mm-hmm. But what I do think we bring with us is it's not a personal individual animosity, but I did bring something with me, if I'm being honest. Like based on what I had to deal with as a kid, I always felt like I had something to prove. Growing older, there's a part of me that maybe subconsciously even that says, oh, I'm going to show all of them, right? The people who treated me a certain way, it's not even the people, but just this type of world that, was that way to me. I'm going to succeed in a certain way and they're going to see that. And I'm going to show them. I think early on when I was younger, it probably was a little more individual like that, a little more personal. But as I got older and I realized there's nobody to prove that to anymore, all these people would probably be really happy for me. They're all really good people. It's not, it
I am happy for
about
you.
That. Sure. See, that's what I'm saying. You're the nicest person. It's not even about that anymore. But it was, if I'm honest, it was a motivator at first, right? To kind of, to make something of myself. The kid that was bullied became, whatever. But I also was adamant in myself, I wasn't going to be like a bad guy version of that. There's people who, you know what I mean? We all know those
Yeah,
people
yeah.
that seem to be bullied and then they become like some like ruthless CEO or
So you have a
something.
good like villain backstory, Josh.
That's so sad.
Yeah,
Like,
it's still
I hope
coming. Yeah, you're not there yet.
Yeah. So I hopefully it's not a villain backstory, but
I mean, you could have, like, if you were to write a villain, that would be like a very poignant backstory, you know.
I guess you're right in that regard, but I think what helps too, and let's be honest, is if to this day, if those people ended up being that terrible still, then maybe that could have been the case, you know, and then I have a different worldview. But instead, I've watched those people grow and change and become wonderful people. And I started to understand the way we fall into these roles is just basically a switch from, you know, whether we're able to empathize or whether we haven't yet. So I don't know. I don't know about you guys, but it helped propel me forward into who I am today. But I don't hold any personal animosity. And I just want to say to you, Michael, like, you're incredibly charismatic to this day. It's like looking at you right now, like, I enjoy being in your presence. And I don't get like a flashback. Some people do this. I think if they're around somebody that they maybe treated them badly as a kid or something, it's not like I'm sitting here getting a negative feeling. I'm really happy to be around you. So that's got to say something. It's not like, it's probably different for other people. There's other people who have been bullied in ways that maybe it's hard to come back from, and you can never tell anybody to, you have to forgive and forget or whatever. But I don't think, even though we had a bit of this relationship, like we said, we were also friends as kids, and we have a lot of great memories together too. So I don't want to pigeonhole you as a bully, because that's not fair, because that's not who you are. I don't think that's who you were either, right? I experienced some of that from you, but that's not who you are or were. I think it's important to not, because sometimes when people get defined a certain way, then there's also self-fulfilling prophecies and things like that. And I think it's important to not define ourselves in such black and white terms. So I wouldn't want to define you as a bully, and I wouldn't want to define me as a victim of bullying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that.
I appreciate you saying that, Josh. I think, I mean, that does mean a lot to me. You saying that's not who I am, and yeah, I appreciate that. And I think, for me, I've gone through different sort of like transformations in my life of becoming a different person, becoming the person I am now, and and I think that, like, sort of like looking back, sometimes we, one thing that you were saying about like wanting to prove something, and wanting to sort of like, that revenge success type of thing, like that is like, that's good stuff, right? As long as you don't sort of get stuck in it, which you haven't, and it doesn't start to run your life forever, like, that's good stuff. And sometimes we have to look back on the things that have happened to us and some of the bad, and use it as fuel, right? And learn lessons from it and use it to push us forward. I mean, like, we need that, right? Like, growth is built on suffering and all that stuff, right? So yeah, but now I have questions for Aya. I mean, like, what do you think about all this? And what do you think about, like, looking
Yeah, you've been
back?
a little quiet there, Aya.
Yeah, but my question is,
I'm just, because you guys have these like incredible stories, and I'm like, I'm just listening. I mean, I was thinking, like, well, partly with the story of confronting your bully and then hugging him, or like even now,
it's an
just
incredible story.
Yeah, and Josh, and just like, I don't know, you guys talking now, like, the more you know someone, just the harder it is to hold any kind of grudge, right? Like, I don't know, there's so many threads. What did you want to know?
Well, my question is, like, if when you look back on, like, your childhood and our time when we were young, or like when you were young, like, is there anything that sort of like happened to you, or something that sort of like hurt you, that for a long time maybe was really hard, or that and eventually maybe you used as fuel, or used to teach you a lesson, or I don't know. Anything
Do you hold any
that?
grudges yourself for anything in your childhood, or any anger that you still hold on to?
Yeah.
Like, from our group of people, like,
From our group,
whether
or
our
whatever.
group, whether from dance, whether from anything.
I mean, from dance, that I've carried on just thinking that I'm very awkward and don't know what to say, which I mean, they approved, because anytime I said something, they'd be like, what are you saying? That's like the weirdest thing you could say. So the whole idea that I'm strange and it's like, don't like understand social interactions. I mean, some of it comes from there. I think like at school, like, I mean, I didn't feel particularly, this is kind of dumb, but like, it's very nice that you say I'm smart, but I never felt like I was very pretty, like, which is kind of I mean, I was a very awkward, as most of us were. So I think I carried that a little bit for a little while. I started straightening my hair starting in like grade 9. I was like, I'm tired of being this like ugly girl and like all these photos. Like, I'm gonna be, and I mean, nobody really, well, there were some comments which like teenage boys make. I remember I was standing next to a friend of mine and someone said it's like a mountain in a valley. And I was the,
What does that
which
mean?
is a weird thing to say.
I don't
Sorry.
understand it. What does that mean?
It barely makes sense because
No.
one of us was more developed than the other one.
Oh,
Also, me as in grade 8, growing up, I was like, oh, Aya is so pretty. By the way, like, you were not an ugly girl. Yeah,
Really?
I want to say
in my child mind, you were like a hot girl.
Are you sure?
Do you realize that,
I'm
like,
sure.
just similar to Michael here
Thank
too?
you. Wow, that's
Michael
so
was like
nice. I care more about
similar
that
to-
than intelligence, apparently. No, what was it,
both
John?
of you guys were
Yeah.
were the top of the class for a reason. You know what I mean? Like, we're seen that way for a reason, right? You
But
guys
it
were
was
the coolest,
never.
and you guys were all, you know what I mean? That it wasn't like, they're the coolest, but also ugly. Like, it wasn't like
never-
that, you know?
Man, no, because I mean, I've looked at the photos and I remember
It's
like,
everything.
I mean, one, I never got attention from like, or the kind of attention, like, you know, when you're in like grade 7, 8 and you start like, I didn't get that sort of attention.
There were 6 guys in the class.
Sorry, Mike, you did name me, you gave me the nickname NB for no butt.
Gosh. Oh no.
I'm so sorry.
My God.
We can totally cut that.
No, we're not
Totally
cutting
cut that.
anything. No, we're not cutting anything.
No, we'll cut that.
I am a terrible person.
No, it's okay. I mean, it's
Wow.
fine. I don't know why that one stuck. I mean, like, I was a later, you know, whatever, but I'm
But are you saying
awkwardly-
butt like butt as in
Butt as
and
in,
butt, or butt
yeah.
as in
Oh man, but I remember thinking like, oh, I guess that's not a good thing, because I was scrawny, like super scrawny, and you know, you think skinny is good, but like too skinny isn't good, and you know, you just like, we all have this stuff, right? Like, no, I'm fine with my.
I mean,
butt
it
now,
sounds
but,
like the insecurity is real, and we talked about insecurities before.
yeah.
But
And I mean, it wasn't just
the,
that.
But the
yeah.
way you were perceived, I gotta tell you, I as one of the guys, we weren't standing around going, I is ugly. At least I don't remember this.
I mean,
in fact, like I said, you were at the top of a lot of things.
That's
so.
very nice. It never felt that way until like later. In high school, yeah, I was fine. Like I was comfortable. I was like, okay, I straightened my hair, so now I'm okay. I straightened my hair.
Everything's fine.
All you have to do is
straighten
straighten
your
your hair.
We good.
Because I straightened my hair and put in contacts, and I would wear my hair loose. But I remember like my hair like slicked back in a ponytail, the glasses on. Like, I've seen pictures, and I'm like, oh my god, what was wrong with me?
We were all disgusting.
And yeah. Sorry.
That's a bad thing.
We were all so weird back then.
We were so weird.
We were all
No,
so
it was.
weird.
There were enough comments that I was like, okay, so I know that I'm skinny and that's supposed to be good, but I don't think I'm. Anyways,
It's amazing a way even a single comment can stick
Yeah.
with us
it's weird.
forever. I bet I bet, like, again, I don't know all the
I'm so
details.
sorry
of,
that
of-
yeah.
Well, I
feel
think
a
it's
little-
probably
it's
it's probably good to
like
be
grade
able
8
to
or
talk this out
yeah,
now.
yeah.
But like, I don't know the whole context of the no butt thing or whatever. But like, I can imagine.
We were playing a sports game. We were in the park playing, and you were like, "Hey, NB," and I was like, "Oh, I have a nickname," and I was like, "What is it?" And then you were like, "It stands for no."
But like, I
don't
can
know,
imagine
that's
it didn't mean, it was like something that, you know, Michael probably thought he was being funny. He didn't mean anything by it. It's not like he went home and started thinking about, like, you know, like,
No,
that
it
it
was-
meant anything, right?
It was like a funny thing, but I mean, it just, you know, once I realized that wasn't like, I was like, I don't think that's supposed to be good. And so it wasn't just at school. At dance too. Like, I remember one time, like, the teacher said something about me being, well, it was actually very nice. She was like, oh, you know, something, those like big eyes, so pretty. So she said something, and I remember all the girls went, oh my God. And they were all like making these things. And then I came by and they were like, I don't know what she's talking about. Like, you know, what girls do. And I was just like, okay, so I'm awkward looking. I get it. I'm aware. Fine. So anyways, this has just turned into me.
No, this is important to see. What you're basically
It-
telling us is how these comments make you redefine your own self and identity and how you view yourself, which is very upsetting because it's like you just in all like I guess there's no such thing as being objective, but like you look more than fine. You're great.
Thanks, thank you. No,
And
I mean,
like, and it's
I
even
didn't.
to
I
this
wasn't
day, I
asking
think,
for
No,
this.
Josh,
I know you
can't
weren't.
just
I know you weren't.
compliment her
Yeah.
and make it all go away.
It's more. It's important that you hear this at one time or another.
No, but
And
now
like,
I'm fine. My self-esteem is very. I'm fine. Like everything's good. If anything, I have too much self-esteem. But like, no.
But when you're
But
young,
like,
that can really affect you.
when you're
Yeah.
young, yeah, and it's just
And-
like there's still parts of me that like, it's kind of a weird thing because like, even though objectively I'll be like, oh, okay, everything's fine. I'm, you know, if by general social standards everything's okay, it's just like it still sticks with you. It's like that awkward little girl is totally there. Like she's, and sometimes I see it in the mirror, or like sometimes I feel like I'm still that person. But I don't know if you guys still, like Mike, you were saying
I
with,
still
like, the
think
body
I
stuff,
still think
like,
I'm an annoying kid. You know, I still think that
right.
it stays with me that I'm this. The things that were said to me in elementary school and high school, you know, have stuck with me too. You know, it's true that people, what was maybe throwaway lines or didn't mean anything to the people who said them. It's true
Yeah.
that stuff stays with you, right?
Yeah.
And if I can just add to that, like I still think I'm fat, right? Like every day, and no matter how much weight I'm gonna lose, right? And so it's sort of the same as what you guys are saying, and we always see that hurt part of us, like, and that weak part of us, right? When we look in the mirror, because when you raise
For
mirror,
sure.
it's interesting because I always talk about that, how we see the worst in ourselves. And even in your example of like, I thought you were like this like hot grade 7er, and but you thought
I didn't.
the opposite, right, about yourself. And so it really does speak to this disconnect between how we feel about ourselves and how we see ourselves and how others see us. You know, we look in the mirror, we immediately see our flaws and the worst parts of us, right? Like we grab our love handles, we call ourselves disgusting, we like, stick our bellies out, right? But no one would ever do that to us or see us that way.
Yeah.
Can I ask you then, Michael, because you're a social worker now, like, well, two questions, I guess. How do we get past some of these things that stick with us maybe today, and how do we, deal with them today? And also, how do we, it's a big question, but what are some of the things we can do to, I guess, prevent or stop bullying at the core?
Yeah, so I'll just answer those super easy questions right now.
Yeah, real quick. Just,
sure. How do we stop bullying at the core?
World peace while we're at it too.
Yeah, how do we get past the things that haunt us? Yeah, no, but
well, I just assume you're a social worker, so you just have all the answers, like just right away.
No, I don't have all the answers, but we can think about it. I mean, I think like I think there's like I think a big part of our like moving forward with our lives is like this dual action of like acceptance and commitment, I think. And because like acceptance of the past, I think a big thing for me is acceptance. So like a lot of our insecurities, a lot of our pain, a lot of our hurt, we spend a lot of energy running from it. We spend a lot of energy pushing it away or avoiding it or covering it up or excusing it or saying sorry for it, whatever. And that energy often makes like the problem worse and show up in our lives a lot more. And I think a big part of moving forward is acceptance. And acceptance is a passive state without sort of commitment as a flip side of the coin. And so what I mean by commitment is sort of like moving towards living a life you want to live, moving towards being the person you want to be, living out your values. And this is me really talking about like, how do we get past some of the things that really hurt us or we can't get by. I think part of it is not trying to get by it. Part of it is trying to like make room for it in your life. allowing it to be, that's at least a big first step. And I think, a lot of what you were talking about earlier, Josh, like with, some of those conflicting feelings around your mom, and some of that guilt that you were feeling, and understandably so. And I think, like, what that brought up for me is like, that's important to who you are, and like this act of accepting something like that and being okay with that, talking about it, and sort of like making room for it in your life, as opposed to being ashamed of it or running from it. Like, that's very powerful. And I think, so yeah, I mean, that's something that I think about that. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a social worker, so I don't have all the answers, but I read this thing that kind of stuck with me once. It was about like how you should, and I think it ties into us talking about how we felt as adolescents, but like you kind of imagine yourself sitting and talking to your child, the child version of yourself, or like take a picture of you as a kid, and like, would you say the things that you say to yourself to that little kid, or like the things that you think about yourself to that little kid? And I kind of did this exercise on my mom, because she'll call herself stupid in like a second. She'll do something, she's like, I'm such an idiot. And I'm like, we had this cute little picture of her when she was a little kid, and I said, like, would you say that to this little girl? And she was like, no. And I was like, yeah. So I mean, sometimes, like, I kind of tried it. I was like, you look at it as a different person. It's kind of weird when you look at it as yourself. It's easier to be mean to them. But like, if you just look at it as another person, and you see them, and you're like I wouldn't say to this person, like, I mean, now as a much nicer adult than I was as an adolescent. As an adolescent, I probably would have said horrible things to them, but like, it's a lot easier to be empathetic when you kind of remove yourself from from yourself. Like, because I mean, like, so what if I see like an awkward scrawny girl? Like, I mean, I would have just as much compassion for her. I wouldn't have any less respect for her. Like, it's the same, you don't. So sometimes it's easier to kind of to be nice to yourself when you see yourself as just a little kid, or like, that weird little, I don't know if that
Makes a lot of sense.
rings true to anybody, but
no, I agree with that. I mean, sometimes it's hard to be kind to yourself, and actually, when you can be kinder to yourself, it also helps to be kind with others, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So I think we have to start kind of at ourselves, right? I've always thought, like, the people who are the most critical of themselves, makes it easy. Then we don't often see that. We just see them criticizing others, and often it starts with yourself. So I guess, yeah, probably a good answer is you got to treat yourself kindly.
Yeah.
First, I don't know. I was also thinking about this has always been just a belief of mine. I don't know if you guys agree with me. The word bully and bullying has always bothered me. The word bully to me, again, you might totally disagree with this, but it sounds like cute. It sounds like a very cute sort of a bully.
Because it ends in ly. Everything cute.
I don't know what it is. Like, he's
like
a
a
bully, and we
little bully.
yeah, and when we had, like, remember in high school and stuff, we would have like what do you call them? Like when everybody came into the auditorium to
assembly.
Yeah, we have like an assembly or whatever about bullying, and they have a little thing on bullying, and they show us videos on bullying, and everybody watched it, and everybody like agreed with it, and no one ever thought they were the bully, right? And the idea, the bully to me is like almost like a cartoonish sort of otherworldly thing, like, and to me, what bothered me about it is, if, like, I can only imagine like telling someone you're a bully, like they would laugh, right? Okay, I'm a bully. To me, the word that better describes it is abuse. This is not in all cases, but to me, my mom didn't bully me; she abused me, at times, right? And sometimes the way that we respond to people, I think the word abuse has more weight, because I think it makes sense because of the consequences of it, right? Abuse is what has the consequences of abuse are like messing you up for life and having all these things that change you, right? To me, it doesn't mean it's intentional or anything like that, but I just think sometimes it's hard to attribute the correct weight to the idea of bullying. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not, but I've always, whenever I hear somebody tell me a story of bullying, like if I hear about a kid, I was like, yeah, he's kind of bullies. I don't hear bully. I hear knowing what that is. I hear abuse, and I don't know. What do you guys think of that?
Well, I feel like I talked about I was more comfortable in my victim zone. I didn't talk about me being a bully as much, but like I'm pretty sure that my I mean, the way I treated Sarah Fisher, I don't know how much you guys remember of that, but I mean, I'm sure that something has stuck with her. I'm sure that like it definitely has like these psychological effects more of like abuse than that's. I mean, it sucks to say that, but like I hope
the
not.
word is,
but
feels icky, right?
The word is but I mean, saying I bullied her. I mean, I feel bad enough saying I bullied, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, I'm sure that to the person it feels a lot more like this. The effects feel deeper than that.
Do you feel bad about some of like the bullying that you did when you were young? I don't remember too much of that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think I like what you said about the anger. I remember having like a lot of anger, and like that was the outlet, and it was just I don't know why I picked who I picked, and sometimes we were friends. That was the thing too. Like sometimes we would hang out, and she clearly like wanted to be my friend. So like, we were sometimes we were friendly, and actually we went to the same camp. And I think we were kind of together long enough that like we kind of just grew out of it. Like she definitely had more friends at camp than I did. So like that was not, it was no longer a problem. And in high school, like she was fine. So but I mean, I wasn't very nice at all. I remember pointing out certain things about her that like I worry about, or I wonder like what her life is, or like if she ever looks at herself and remembers the thing that I said, just like the way we all do, right? We all look at that thing about ourselves. So I remember saying something about her fingers. It's like, oh, I don't know, I said something like, what's wrong with your fingers? She's probably looking at her fingers like,
well, probably not. Probably the comments that she remembers are very different than the one you remember.
That's probably true. Yeah.
But
yeah.
I could see the pain in you remembering even doing that. Like I feel empathy for you feeling,
oh, well, good,
remembering.
I'd much rather.
I could see you struggling to like, and I feel, and it's hard, and that sort of thing.
I think like, sorry, I like part of what makes, this is going to sound really messed up, but part of what makes a good bully is what people's weaknesses are. And if you know what people's weaknesses are, I think that can work in a good or a bad way, because it means that you have a lot of potential too. Like, so the fact that, like Mike, I don't know if, sorry, I keep calling you Mike.
I don't care.
Michael, I don't know why Mike. Though. I think we must have called you that when we were little.
Easier, just call me Mike.
No, I can't. So like Michael, if you're working as a social worker, it means you understand like people's, probably you're more empathetic in some ways. You must be, right? And like I don't know if that also works it can work the opposite way. It's like a superpower, right? Like you can understand people, and if you're younger and the way to be at the top of the social hierarchy is to kind of have some like cutting remarks that kind of put everybody in their place, then it's a superpower in a bad way. But like, I don't know if I'm explaining.
You can use it for good, and you can be a social worker basically.
Yeah.
And like, I just want to say that that is, I've known other people that self-described like bullies as kids. I have other friends that were like, I was a bully as a kid, and they went on to become social workers. And I don't think this is, you could tell me if you disagree, Michael. I don't know if that's a coincidence. Like maybe because you were saying, like you have the ability to understand people in a certain way, and maybe as a kid you might use it for evil, but like when you don't know any better, right, to help better yourself, but you realize you understand people at a certain level that you can then use that to also help people. I don't know if I'm oversimplifying this or not.
No, that you were explaining what I was trying to say. So that was perfect. Thank you. It was good.
No, I guess I like what you guys are saying. I've never really attributed it to that, and I still wouldn't, but I think you're right in the fact that like picking up on people's weaknesses is like a skill as a bully, and now in my job or my life, it's all about like how to hold people's weaknesses, with care in a way that can help them grow. So maybe there is a link there. Both have to do with weaknesses, both have to do with vulnerabilities, and being able to see them in each other. And maybe because I knew that everyone has weaknesses, because I knew weaknesses too well, I would attribute a lot of that me becoming a social worker was because I understand pain, I understand alienation and bad relationships and hurt, and I get that stuff. So I think that is part of why I did what I did. Yeah, and if I can say also, Josh, I love what you said about like bully being like this caricature of a word, and oh, there's only one. It's like whack-a-mole, a bully, as opposed to many people having abusive traits. And you're right. A lot of because it reminded me, I had a client recently who was like, everyone's using she's a teenage girl, she's been through so much, she goes, everyone's talking about daddy issues. She goes, it's such a stupid term, it's such a, like she said, it's such a caricature of a term. I have issues with my father, my father was abusive. I don't have daddy issues. I have issues about my abusive father, and it's made me part to who I am today, right? It's like, so these words, these labels, they have a big impact, and we minimize things through those words, often to protect, because they're comfortable, often to protect people's egos, and things like that, right? Because as you say, like if I was abusive to you, it's way worse than if I was a bully, right? And so I hear what you're saying, and I gotta agree in that, it is abuse, and framing it in that way, I actually see things a little bit differently. I
was only saying that because I think it's useful moving forward for people, when we're talking to kids about what issues they're dealing with, and instead of looking at it as, I always think that could help if we educate children about this being a part of not some like cute little like some kids are bullies sort of a thing, but like educated as abusive behavior versus not, could be more. No one wants to be an abuser, you know what I mean? So like no one wants to be a bully either, but like it's just the weight of it. I was just thinking, in terms of, but I don't mean to like, I hope I'm not saying this like, I just want to let you know that you abused, like
no, not at all.
That's not the point
at all
what I'm saying.
And it would be so much more useful for education, basically. Like, I mean, I was like, I've already mentioned this, but like when I was volunteering on the crisis line at the women's shelter, like it's a lot of like sexual assault and abuse, and that's what we get trained on. And when you look at the behavior and the reaction, there's so many similarities, like in terms of just the kinds of interactions that they are, that it would be useful for everyone to understand it that way, really. Like, I don't know if I'm explaining this well.
By the way, I just want to say it's amazing. Just again, you're volunteering, again, women's shelter, Michael's a social worker. Like, you guys are doing such noble work, like helping people. I think.
It's just
that's who you are.
Okay.
No, that is amazing. Okay, I don't play it down.
Yeah,
but you can play it down. I know you're going to.
I was so ready.
It's still amazing. Okay?
It does feel, honestly, like most of the time sometimes it felt like really amazing. Sometimes it feels not at all, especially when they're yelling at you on the phone. Like,
well, it's hard stuff,
I had one lady,
right?
just like, there's, it's hard. And they're not, but sometimes I won't minimize it, because I'm glad that people are doing that work. And for me, it's been kind of eye-opening too. Like, so it's very fulfilling. I won't make a joke. It's always my instinct to make a joke whenever I'm like that.
I just say I have a lot of respect, for that, and for Michael, for you doing this as like your career is, I mean, again, that's how I, you think if someone says to me, like, how do you view Michael Lander? Yeah, years ago, the first thing that might have came to mind was, you in elementary school, right? The thing that comes to mind now immediately is, oh, he's this guy who helps people. This is a guy who's filled with empathy, and he works hard to make people's lives better, bettering the world. That's how you're viewed by me. Okay, once upon a time. So I can only imagine, in general, most people must see you like incredibly. Like you're probably a hero and a savior to a lot of people as well, doing the work you do. I once considered going into that sort of line of work, and I thought, wow, that would be my life all the time, dealing with a lot of these issues. That's what I would be taking home with me. That might be really difficult to do. So I, went into something more fun. I make movies. Uh, but that just goes to show how noble the work you're doing is. So I want to thank you for doing that work too.
Yeah, I mean, every day too. Like, I mean, I did a 3-hour shift, like maybe once a week, at most like twice a week, and not people aren't necessarily always calling. So I've tried to think about like doing it full time, and it's got to be like really emotionally exhausting, but such important work. Like, I think probably makes a huge difference to so many of like kids. And do you mainly work with like kids and teens and stuff?
Yeah, and I was gonna say just quickly, like, it's
go
not
ahead.
easy to be the person that the other person's yelling at, right? You're in a situation like you're gonna get yelled at sometimes, and that's that's the job sometimes. Anyway, so I think, oh yes, I work with kids. I work like a 0 to 25 or any parent. That's my main role. As a therapist, because so I work at a community-based mental health agency, one of the largest in Toronto. So it's all free, and so it's all like kid referrals through schools, referrals through like child welfare, referrals through like doctors, whatever. And we run like a walk-in clinic, a therapy walk-in clinic. It's called the What's Up Walk-In. There's 4 around the GTA. And we are in the North Etobicoke sort of region, and anyone can walk in. Any kid, any parent can walk in and get therapy that day.
Wow!
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So you get. So I will meet with a 16-year-old who is feeling suicidal and decides to walk into the agency for therapy that day. So I'll see them, and then in the next hour, I'll see a parent of a 2-year-old with autism, or I will, or I will see all different types of people. And so it's pretty intense stuff. And I also have like lots of sort of like ongoing cases, like mostly teenagers. I work with a lot of teenagers.
How do you handle that emotion? Like, how do you deal with all that constant emotional flux?
Yeah, I mean, like it's hard, but I think because I believe in it so much. And I think it's so important, and also like it fuels me, it fills me up. I almost need it in a way. Yeah, so it doesn't drain me. People sort of imagine it drains me. I don't think it drains me. Like when I'm not doing anything, or when I'm like feeling gross, or watched like all of like New Girls, whatever, in a day, like that drains me, even though that's doing nothing. But I don't know.
Feels less productive. It feels less productive.
Yeah, and I think going when I was explaining this, I was talking to my cousin the other day, and I was like, when I was in university, I was in philosophy and whatever, and I failed everything, and they almost kicked me out, and I totally changed my life around, and stopped doing drugs, whatever, all that stuff, and I think part of it was I realized, like, because I started volunteering in this child psychiatric unit, and I realized like everyone's learning about all these things and doing nothing. It's all bullshit. It's just a bunch of people just like sort of talking with each other. So I was like, philosophy is like the worst. I'm just, so I totally switched everything over, and I was like, I just want to like make a different, like, I just want to like work with people. So that's what I did, and it's still what I'm wanting to do. But yeah, it's a lot of pain. Like it also definitely affects me. I try not to like push it away. I try not to turn off. When I go home, this idea of like, you should go home and turn off. No, I was taught by like a really wise person once that no, you should take it home with, everyone says, don't take it home with you.
Interesting.
This like elder, she was like, no, take it home with you.
I've
be
never heard.
kind. Yeah, she's
Oh,
like, be kind to it, like let it sit there with you, process it, and then like let it go, right? If you're
right.
always like just thinking, I can't take this home with me,
Yeah,
then it's gonna hurt you. And some of these stories, yeah, you got to take it home with you a little bit, and that's okay.
for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. I
Wow.
I really, and I love the like being in philosophy and being like all these people are talking. When I like decided I was like, I have to do something. Like I don't care how busy I am. Like I was writing my dissertation, and I was, it's related to feminism stuff, and I was like, what am I doing? Like who cares? No one's going to read this. This will make no difference in anyone's life. So I was like, I need to, like, it's just, what is it, like academics talking at each other about like some theoretical bullshit. So like I needed to do something. And I remember like once I could, everything else was a little easier too, because it was like, yeah, it was an outlet for like that need. I needed to. There were moments when it was difficult, but I mean, for the most part, I felt I kind of loved it. Like, I mean, again, it was 3 hours like once or twice a week, so it's not that much, but like even that, I kind of, so I get to a certain extent. I don't know that I could do it every day, but it feels like you're doing something that matters, and it's so much better than spending your time like doing things that it's like, what am I doing this for? What's the point, right?
You
It's
see,
clear there's a
when,
point, and
Well,
yeah.
wait, sorry, I totally put my foot in my mouth, like shit talking
What?
academia, and I wasn't
No,
like coming after you
please,
because
please shit talk academia. I am so sick of academia. I honestly like I didn't want to finish them. There were so many times I wanted to.
no, yeah, but I love
Either,
not just that.
I
so
also love school. Like I got a bunch of degree. Like I love
yeah,
academia. So it's
I
a
love
Not
learning.
just
No, but I mean,
academia. If I watch a season of New Girl, or if I watch just a day of watching a TV show, that's education for me. So
Nice. Real nice.
oh, okay.
Real nice.
Aya makes fun of me every time I say this, but it's true. Aya.
Oh yeah.
This is
No,
how,
you're doing
it's
research.
my education.
Yeah,
Watching shows and movies is research
of
for me.
course.
So
Yeah.
I get to feel
Are you
productive
taking notes
watching
or?
The Mandalorian, or
Yeah.
no, it's
And Josh, I feel like you're like such a, you're like an LA Jew kind of guy. Like I like it. I really like it. You got this vibe going. You're like hilarious. You're a quick talker. I feel like I could bring you to a meeting. You could pitch your idea and like I don't know. Yeah.
I hope I haven't
like
become
at
too
a
much of an
deli.
LA Jew.
What did you say about a deli?
Yeah, like I imagine like the meeting would be at a deli. Like I feel like
it's like
you
the
thrive
Marvelous Mrs.
there.
Maisel, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I try not to fall into too many stereotypes, but only because like I say, I'm half Canadian and half American because I'm a dual citizen. So I like to tell people I'm half an asshole. But
That's funny.
No, it's actually
Which side am I talking?
you're a pleasant person to have around. Like sometimes when I remember like even when you came to like a party, I don't know, when we were like the last time you were in London and it was like a birthday party, and it's like you're kind of a good party person around, Josh, because you're like, you've got the LA stories, you like know, what is it, like Spielberg's mom or whatever, like it's just very easy to like
They said the more
yeah.
interesting things you do, the more interesting a person you can appear to be
Yeah.
to other people. So just try to keep having experiences, right? Whatever they might be.
Yeah.
I hope both of you have a chance at some point in the future to come visit me here.
Yeah.
At some point.
Well,
But also, it's just another way of saying that maybe it's a good way to start wrapping up. But
well, we're all friends now, right? Aren't we
Absolutely.
all?
I mean, I'm not going
yeah,
to
we're
go
all
to LA
adulthood friends.
because I know but you will come here.
You should just
and we'll
come
hang out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Josh,
I meant
there aren't
saying
gonna
it.
be
Well, I
two
meant
people
like
going
if you ever
there.
come visit,
You come
but I
here.
do expect first for me to come back. And you're in Toronto basically now,
I'm in
right,
Toronto.
Michael?
Yeah. But
So yeah, for sure I'll be in Toronto. I have family in Toronto. I go there all the time when I'm able to travel. And I really hope that you and I get to sit down, eat, and laugh and talk. Because I genuinely, I'm not just saying this to run a podcast. I genuinely enjoy talking to you. And just like with Aya, like Aya and I, we didn't become friends because we got on a podcast. We started a podcast because we became friends. And I similarly am feeling it. I'm talking to you that like, I just want to be your friend. Like, we live in different places. Well, but I hope to just, touch base once in a while at the very least, and keep getting to know you, because you're awesome.
Thanks, Josh. I absolutely, I want to be your friend. I want to be your friend, Aya. I think we're all
You too.
now friends.
Yeah.
Hey, look at there's a theme. There's our adulthood
Wrapped
friends
up.
theme. We need like a cheesy sound effect every time we say that, when you throw in here.
I mean, it's so wait. So if we think about though, like our childhood selves seeing us today doing this, could you imagine
Crazy.
us being like feeling comfortable with our lives and like being okay? I don't know. Could you imagine that?
Yeah.
I can't even.
So nice.
There's too many things to imagine first.
There's a lot of, there's so many levels of that, but I'm gonna.
Yeah. Like, it's blowing my mind almost as much as the talk we just had with Pierce. And that one episode. Like, the way we've seen each other change and grow. And again, it feels like such a surprise when we knew each other as kids. And yet it shouldn't be that surprising. People grow up and we all become a lot more similar than we are different. And what I think is surprising me, quote unquote, the most, Michael, is how much I relate to you. We're different people, but like a lot of what you're saying, I'm like, yeah, I feel this, like, very similar to you. Just like I often feel like when I talk to Aya, like we like to talk about our differences. We always get excited on the podcast, like, oh, this is gonna be something where we're gonna disagree on this, because that's interesting to listen to, because most of the time we agree. I find so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thank you so much for coming on. It has been awesome talking to you, and also because like I haven't seen you in however many years. And I mean, maybe I lost my train of thought.
Maybe we'll have you on again sometime.
Maybe we'll have you on again, but I don't want to put any pressure on you.
Yeah.
But it's been lovely, and
awesome,
thanks
Michael.
so much.
Thank you
coming.
so much. And I don't know if this is like, I was debating whether like I should say this like throughout, because you said like a bunch of times, you said you're sorry to me throughout this podcast, and like the immediate reaction I'm thinking is like, well, I forgive you, first of all. But the other aspect is like, I don't even feel the need to again. I just want to point that out in case there's any lingering thoughts about that, because I realized I didn't say that when you said sorry, and it's because I don't even like, I don't feel any sort of animosity. I just want to repeat that to you again, because I think it takes a lot of courage to come on here and like even just talk about this stuff, and to talk as if you were like this bad guy or something. That again, it's way more nuanced than that. It goes for all of us. But I just want to say that if at all you're wondering, yes, I forgive you, but way beyond that, I don't even, I also love you. I feel love for you, for both of you. So just want to say that.
Josh, thank you. And I love you too. And I really appreciate you forgiving me. It does, these conversations are important, and I felt like it was important to ask for your forgiveness, and so I appreciate that. And I think like, I'm happy we can sort of like, just move forward. And
no, it means a lot to have this conversation. So again, thank you so much for doing that.
I think that's
You're welcome. And we love you too.
Oh, I love you guys too. Aw, I love you guys too.
Sorry, I ruined it.
No, you didn't. That was
I do this all the time.
So I needed to. I should have said something. I was just like, I'm not doing something up, so I'm gonna not. No, it's it's like weird cousins or something, because we haven't.
We're all like that's the whole thing. That's why I feel
together, right?
I'm saying I feel love for you guys. It's because we are like a fam. We grew up together. In this community, in this family, right? So it really is an interesting kind of special connection we already had. So it feels right connecting and reconnecting and getting to know each other as adults. So on that note, I want to take us out.
Well, I love you guys, and this has been another episode of Adulthood Friends. I have to say all that other stuff too, right? If you enjoy the episodes, shit. Okay. If you're enjoying the episodes, please rate, review, and subscribe. And you can like our Facebook page. We're also kind of almost on Twitter and all those other places. So
We're also on basically every podcasting platform right now: Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, yada yada yada. So you can tune in for more. Wow, it sounds so like a robot. Like when I say this stuff, I hate
You
it.
did it well. No, you did it well. I kept.
And now we know the way that we have to end this. Like I have to be in the middle of talking, and then suddenly. Michael's like, what the fuck's going on?
Like, okay, this is what they do.